no secret that the Democratic Party has an image problem, but a new poll from the Wall Street Journal puts it into perspective, the magnitude of the problem. According to the Journal's poll, the party's image has eroded to a 30-year low, with nearly two-thirds of voters reporting that they hold an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party, and a little less than one-third reporting a favorable opinion.
How sad. In fact, Democrats scored so poorly across the board. One of the pollsters who worked on the survey with the Journal gave this scathing indictment of the Democratic Party. Quote, "The Democratic brand is so bad that they don't have the credibility to be a critic of Trump or the Republican Party until they reconnect with real voters and working people on whom they're for and what their economic message is. They're going to have problems." By comparison, Trump's also underwater in the Wall Street Journal poll, but not by nearly as much as the Democrats. His unfavorables outnumber his favorables by just 7 points, and the Republican Party is only under by 11 points.
But just because Trump is polling higher than the Democrats doesn't mean he's popular. His latest report card shows poor marks for parts of his agenda, specifically issues that he campaigned on, like immigration and inflation. In that same Wall Street Journal poll, when asked about Trump's mass deportation efforts, 51% of those polled said he's taken it too far, while just 23% said not far enough, and 24% said just about right. And on inflation, 55% say they disapprove of the president's handling of the issue, compared to a total of 44% who said they approved. This just sounds like a whole country of people that are just like not that satisfied, which is a bigger problem that I think even Buttigieg was talking about, to consider that maybe you're not talking directly to the American people. People are so used to what would have been, like, even with Trump, in a way of the things that he does, he is breaking the norms of Republicans with the way that he's spending, or, you know, some bills that he pushes forward, even with the Medicaid cuts, with Josh Hawley disagreeing with him. But maybe both parties need to look at what everyone's asking for and move forward in those ways, because what I know works for President Trump is the fact that he is kind of just trying something else or doing something else, as opposed to the norms that we have come to expect. And Democrats are trying to stay so close to what has been known to them that as the younger Democrats rise up, they're like, this doesn't make sense for us. Like, we take what our grandparents said and we listen to that, but also we want to enhance and expand that, and y'all are not coming on the journey with us. And I think that that's really important, to embrace new ideas, plus think about how the old ones fit in the new.
Look, this poll is just one poll. I've seen a lot lately in terms of Trump's approval ratings for various policies. Some have what he's doing more favorably, some have it less favorably. But all polls show a massive problem for the Democratic Party. That even polls that tend to show Trump losing ground or losing support, or people not being on board with every aspect of his agenda, Republicans are in total control and face no meaningful opposition and can just do whatever they want, and that is bound to cause overreach and inspire some sort of backlash. But even when evidence that there could be a backlash is being demonstrated, you do not see the Democratic Party's fortunes rising, which is a really damning indictment of the shape they are in, that they cannot make Trump's losses their gains. If even is experiencing any losses, they can't capitalize on it. If they can't do it now, when will they be able to pull themselves together? It just shows a profound dissatisfaction with this party that I think, and you won't like to hear this, Lindsey, goes back to the fact that they elevated a corpse to the office of the presidency and then tried to pretend the emperor is actually wearing clothes. I'm mixing some metaphors here. You know what I mean? Joe Biden, historically unpopular, not capable of being president toward the end of his presidency, and they were still pretending that it was going to be perfectly fine to have him for 4 more years, is, I think, something that has caused an earthquake of distrust in this party. And the party would like to move on from that, but it has a lot of the same leadership in charge. They need to replace a lot of their people with younger people who are not poisoned by association with Biden. That's something we didn't bring up in Your Lens when we talked about Buttigieg. Mm-hmm. That is something that will hurt him. He was a part of the Biden administration. He was at cabinet meetings. Did he not know that Biden was not functioning? He was. I mean, he said on the reporting, he's been hidden from Biden.
He actually did talk about that. We'll bring it back to the conversation now, but he did talk about that, and he said, from my experience with President Biden, whenever we discussed an issue that had to do with transportation or that arena, I got succinct quick answers, and they were, so he was just saying that doesn't mean he still can't criticize the party and what they did. Biden coherently gave him advice and feedback, and so that he was able to fully do his job, and he doesn't in any way say that he was impacted. And so that still stands. That's one person's experience who also says, and we probably shouldn't have went that route, without saying it. And I agree. I think that was the biggest miscalculation, was to say, listen, we have people that are in line for the next turn for presidency, and we're just following this rule because we said so, because everyone kind of revolted against it. And where it might have worked for our grandparents, that's not what works for today for anybody. I think even because if that was the case, then Trump wouldn't be president, right? There were people that were supposed to be president because they thought that America called for something different. And that's why all these voices came about. Some were hesitant because President Trump still had popularity. But after January 6th, most people thought he was done. And then he still went forward because some part of the party embraced that a different idea is acceptable, and we have to go what the party says, not what we say. And Democrats still haven't embraced that idea that maybe, and there's not some rising person that has come up to be that present, obvious next candidate, but at the same time, there has to be room for that person to grow up within the party without everybody jumping on top of them to say, this is not, there's too much of that and there's no real solution. And the biggest issue for me is that so many years have passed from the first time Trump was president, and so much criticism has occurred of how, they basically put a blanket over his presidency for Democrats of being one of the worst of all time, likening him to some of the worst dictators of all time, saying that he's just ruining our country. And so with all that strife and that experience of President Trump, and then him losing an election, to be this far out from the first day that he was president and the complaints that came with that, to not have a strategy other than Biden, and then past Biden, still no strategy after what a disaster that was, it's kind of incredible to kind of watch play out, because it's almost like if somebody loses a basketball game intentionally, just doesn't even play. And that's why I'm fascinated by the fact that conversations are still happening about what we should do and how we should get in touch with the American people, because that should have happened years ago. If you would have listened to the American people, there would. And so we're kind of seeing that there actually was no plan.
Game of Thrones final season, lack of a plan.
Well,
really?
I'm going to tell you something.
You didn't think this through at all?
I joined Game of Thrones. Oh my God, the whole audience is about to judge me. Season 5.
Yeah.
I joined watching Game of Thrones, and I went all the way back, caught up in 3-4 months.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
And then I thought season 6, or what was it? 6 was that last season?
8 is the final season.
8. I thought season 8 was fantastic by the time I got to it. I thought it was the Starbucks cup and all. I was happy with it. Please.
Oh, that's offensive.
And so I know people are gonna. That's a hot take.
I mean, it had fine ideas. It just had no time to execute them because it was so rushed. And like Daenerys's turn to evil takes place in about 5 minutes, which was, I think, a perfectly good idea, to have her go insane and try to kill everyone. But it's just happens immediately.
Let it breathe.
Bran, nobody wanted Bran to be in charge. Cersei, my beloved Cersei, she just stands on a balcony the whole season. Oh, Varys, not foiled by. Oh, I could go on and on and on. I hated it so much. Jon Snow. Jon has to go back to the wall, even though there's no ice people anymore. Why does Jon have to go back to the wall?
That's the Democratic Party.
Travesty.
Season 8 of Game of Thrones
Absolutely
is the Democratic Party.
A travesty.
We can agree with that, and so I think there still is an opportunity to figure out. I don't even know. The midterms are quickly going to approach. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to turn around and be like, midterms are here. But for 2028, there's a real opportunity to not continue to throw in some of the same names. I know you named 5. Anybody else out there that wants to join that list of your 5 would be great. Now's the time to start building them up. I know a lot of people are talking about Wes Moore because he's been very effective, throughout Maryland, and what he's doing with the collapsed bridge and speaking up and out against Trump, but not in a super Jasmine Crockett way, since you can't stand that style. He has a totally different style. And so I think there are people that should step up and start having wide scale conversations, whether that's on podcasts or being more apparent. But I think the American public needs to see you. People need to see what the options are before we get to debate time. We don't want 5 to 10 Democrats on stage criticizing each other and throwing all this pasta at the wall.
Why don't we do the debates now?
Really, just give us something to work with.
Say, you know what? Why don't we have Kamala Harris? We invite them, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom and Buttigieg and whoever else, and do a little mini debate and do some audience scorecard type thing and figure out what people like.
Because sometimes polls will lead us astray, and polls are like, oh, Kamala, oh, Buttigieg. It's like, okay, I hear you. We're far out from the election, but I don't know that what I'm hearing from either of those candidates is going to bring this whole entire young faction of the party that got left out, or anyone else who felt left out, the people who sat at home and didn't vote. get them off the couch again. And that's really important.
What's that famous line from the producers? We kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. We've got a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.